Today I wanted to do a fun exercise, and of course my cats will be in and out to help keep you entertained. So I wanted to basically sketch out what a compassionate layoff process, so to speak, would look like. This is a process that would be the most helpful for both the person being laid off, but also the people doing the layoffs, because if they follow these steps, they could potentially avoid some of the things that cause them to end up laying off, like certain people they end up deciding they want to lay off, and help people who they would lay off avoid applying for their company, because different companies lay off for different reasons. They use different policies to lay people off. So it's an all around helpful exercise to make any layoffs the company has to do. It's a process that will make the employer relationship hopefully less volatile, and again, just make it so that the contracts are mutually beneficial without so much risk of layoff. So, starting from the beginning, when a layoff happens, when you have that dreaded meeting with the person or people you're laying off, tell them why you're laying them off, what process you used to lay them off. Did you just literally put everyone in the department in an Excel sheet and just pick randomly? Did you pick by who had the highest salary? Or did you make some ratio, however accurate it may be, of how much someone makes versus how much revenue their work brings into the company? Did you look at Jira and see how much work they were doing on paper? Giving employees this information will allow that employee, if they had performance issues, of course, they would be able to leave and figure out how to improve their performance issues. So whoever hired them next, they will have an employee who has actually hopefully figured out how to improve their issues. And I know that companies will argue, well, depending what we say, we can get sued for discrimination. If it's genuinely a performance issue, word it that way. You just have to say specifically what performance issue there was. If it's a Jira documentation issue, if they on paper seem like they weren't doing enough work, going forward they know to do better to report everything on Jira or whatever your company uses. As long as you're being legal, you don't have anything to fear about lawsuits. If people start creating false discrimination lawsuits where they think they're discriminated but turns out it's not the case, and the company's really transparent about what happened, most people are like, oh, that wasn't actually discrimination. I don't know if it's just an American problem or a problem all over the world. We just have a problem with transparency, and because people in America are known to be quick to throw lawsuits, it just paints companies' decisions to do super sketchy things that just end up hurting both employers and employees in the end. I'm no expert. I'm not saying I have a perfect answer to this, but I think that this is the first step in an ideal layoff process, actually telling someone why they were laid off. Also, people will be able to communicate online. This is why this company laid me off. And surely somebody will make a site or an app, or it'll just be easily searchable on Google, or Glassdoor may just make it easy to look up what logic this company uses to lay people off. Because the other thing is, people will know what companies they should or shouldn't apply to personally, based off if they know they can struggle with being super on time. If a company lays someone off because they arrived at 9:01 too many times instead of 9 o'clock, they know to avoid that. That would probably be a bad example. That's probably shouldn't happen. I don't know. But you find the companies to avoid depending on what kind of environment, what kind of culture you're looking for. And Actually, if someone's really into people being timely, people not working somewhere anymore because they weren't timely enough could attract the right people. Again, I don't know if timeliness is a real reason to lay people off, but that's just an example of how being transparent about why you lay someone off can actually benefit the company in the long run as far as attracting the right people according to whatever culture the company has. So being open about that, letting people know if there's something that they genuinely need to improve on, even if it's not the reason they got laid off, it would be good if the manager has to give honest review of the employee. I know most companies have midterm reviews and things like that, so a lot of that is probably already known, and hopefully whoever is already working on what they know they need to work on. But if having honest feedback from your manager is also really helpful, so that, again, employees know what they should be working on, and different places, future employers know that this employee has the tools to improve on their performance because they know why they were laid off. This may sound too ideal, but that's what we're going with here because there's a lot of complication in these things. I'm trying to address this along the way. But feel free to say how impractical this is, but this is just the ideal and why it potentially benefits everyone involved. So giving as much feedback as possible is super helpful, not just for the company doing the layoff, but other companies to have workers who are more on their game as far as avoiding anything that makes them susceptible to layoffs, as dumb as the reasoning can be. Or if it really was more on the random side and nothing they could have really done there was nothing they could have really did to avoid getting laid off, I think that will help people's mental health, because with layoffs, there's a lot of guilt that comes with layoffs, including myself. I felt guilty about my own struggles when I had the job that I had. So I think that knowing that the layoff was more on the random side can help people go, phew, I don't have anything within how I work that has people questioning my ability to work. I don't really have anything pressing that I need to immediately fit for my next job. That's just going to be really helpful to the employee. And again, it incentivizes companies not to do layoffs like that, because layoffs are often employers and managers making rash, uninformed decisions about the economy. The minute the economy looks questionable, layoffs start to happen. It's not even because we've hit a recession or anything. Just because their stocks got a little low, we're laying people off. Or even just their stocks look like they could be lower than last year or whatever. We're doing layoffs. Like that, more transparency forces companies not to make stupid decisions like that, because then they have to face the publicity damage that comes with those stupid, rash decisions. And it makes them think twice. What if this is just a bump in the road that doesn't actually turn out to be this bad thing that we needed to fire people for? It forces companies to be a bit more level-headed about how they're going forward. Again, I know it's more complicated than that generally, but it's just throwing out ideas for how to generally improve how layoffs work, to ultimately improve how the workforce looks, how companies are seen by people. If you actually try to adapt some of these improvements, your reputation as a company and therefore ultimately your profits will increase, because more people, you'll get better employees because they know they'll be better taken care of versus other companies, which makes you better profits, which makes the stakeholders happy, because I know that's a big part of what makes it complicated. You make your stakeholders happy because you're making more profit, because you have better people, because you treat them better. That's what companies need to get. That's why things like this would actually help you retain the best talent. So there's that. The transparency is super important, super valuable to making things super transparent. And it's super valuable for maintaining a good employer relationship in a given company. So once the layoffs happen, here's a big thing, right? I learned that companies, especially if they're big enough, they'll have what are called outplacement services. So you will have this resource for however long the company decides to pay for it. And this company that the company who laid you off partners with, they're supposed to help you revamp your LinkedIn so you have the best chance to land on your feet somewhere else. And I haven't gotten the chance to try these services because I have to wait to be able to sign my severance until a certain day. And I think that, because I've looked up how other people have felt about, I've looked up how much these services have helped other people who've been laid off, and it's definitely a mixed bag. The consensus seems to be that aside from one company just having a really bad impression, a really bad reputation for being not super helpful, it's mostly helpful for people who are still early on in their career, who would benefit from the guidance of optimizing their resume and LinkedIn, which is something that other people who are more experienced in the job market, they don't necessarily need help with. They've developed their brand. All of that stuff is well established and they've figured out what works for them. I think that in order for these outplacement services to truly be forced to be as helpful as they could possibly be to people, again, this is the ideal system that we may never get, but ideally, this may sound random, but the companies laying people off need to continue to pay the people they lay off enough money per month that the people can afford the rent, and the people have to prove this is their rent amount or their mortgage payment, per month, pay to keep a roof over the people's head while they're looking for a new job, so that the company doing the layoffs are ensuring that their outplacement service partners are providing the best possible service they can to people. That the outplacement service is just really earning that money to get people into jobs by helping them create the best possible resume for them based off of the skills that they have and experiences that they have. That's it. Just a pressure on the company to actually help the people land on their feet. Because again, if paying the people their full salary was too much for you, now you still have to keep the people you chose to hire at one point until you can get them on their feet. Once someone gets a job offer, that's it. If they want to reject it and keep looking, then the company doesn't owe them anything anymore. But the company has to pay to help these people. The company has to show real investment to help these people get jobs. And something that I kind of realize is that if companies were forced by the government to do these kind of things, it might push them to put more into AI research so they'd have to deal with less humans. And that's its own problem, because AI in general, even without making layoffs more compassionate, more equitable, even without that, companies are rushing to implement AI, however half thought out it is. But we already have this problem. If this was ever implemented, it could make things worse on the AI front, but that's when we look at the government. Guys, we're kind of fucked out here. And that is it's convincing the government to step in and provide AI regulation or whatever form of universal income is economically feasible. That's its own whole can of worms, but that's a big thing that I think companies should do is if you're going to suddenly drop a person, just like you expect 2 weeks notice from somebody before they quit a job, we should get the outplacement services help, but if they're not actually doing a good job helping the people, it's not doing its service. Part of that, another thing that could be done instead of extending outplacement services a long time is doing what some companies might do, and that is giving more notice before a layoff. Basically letting managers know, hey, we're laying so-and-so off, but instead of being like, oh, it's going to be immediate when we tell them, use it as an offboarding opportunity so that the people being laid off can still make money, their normal salary, while helping their team figure out how to function without them. Now, it could backfire. The person could decide, fuck that, even if I'm not going to get paid, I'm leaving now. That it could not happen, but if somebody is willing to stay, get paid, and help their team figure out how to survive without them and make sure their team knows how to get everything done, that would definitely not only help that specific team in the company, but help the company itself not actually suffer because they're deciding to throw somebody out. Because in my experience, the leadership in a company doesn't give a shit if they know that there have been however many layoffs to any specific team, or they know if a whole team's been laid off that another team relied on to be able to do something at a faster pace or whatever. They, even if they don't know, if they were told that, they don't necessarily care because that's how it is right now. But if we want to make the system more compassionate and more feasible for everyone involved, you would give that time and notice to hopefully have the person help their team figure out how to reorganize without them, because it does suck for the person being laid off, don't get me wrong. Personally, I was fine with spending at least another day or two scrambling to help my team figure out how they're going to divide the work and making sure the people who are doing whatever work I did know how to do things, where things are, because ideally you would have backup people for any task already in place, but not everything especially in reality works like that. So that giving people that time to prepare for this when a layoff is actually going to happen benefits the company by ensuring there's no disruption in service, there's therefore no disruption in earning the money that person's work earned, because somebody knows how to do that work, and the teams, as best as they can, been able to organize the work amongst those left behind so that there's no disruption in work. I don't know how much you can hear the ambulance. I'm sorry if you can. But that is another big thing that should be done to help the people being left behind and help somebody get a bit more pay before they have to go. That companies should be doing is paying people while they spend a week max or 2 weeks helping people get through their work. And the person, if they are just angry because they're about to be laid off, they're not being helpful, then that's different. But or if they're actually, if IT detects, oh, they're doing sketchy things, then you would be able to automatically shut their shit off and escort them out the building if applicable. But aside from that, if the person is willing to help their team be prepared, that should be a thing that companies do more often, is allowing people to help their teams prepare for them not being there anymore. And they should still have outplacement services, even if that's limited like it is now. It's just have, even if a company, here's the thing, even if a company only implements one of these things I've described, or something to make layoffs more compassionate slash less of a chaos scramble to figure out what to do without the person, that again will only help the company look better in the public eye. Because even if nobody says anything about why they were laid off or anything, your company still looks bad when you lay people off. It doesn't really, whatever your company produces doesn't make up for laying off thousands of people. That's still going to be a stain on you. But if you at least do it in a compassionate way, you can fix some of that reputation damage, even by implementing one of these ideas or some idea to make your layoff less of a shitty situation for those involved. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. If you have any ideas of things that would make the layoff process more compassionate anyway, drop them in the comments. Thank you again for watching. Also, hi.